Right, I'm here with my man Turkish. We've just witnessed an underwhelming performance, it has to be said. Your initial thoughts on the game?
I'm disappointed that I think that should be everyone's initial thoughts. I said last week, the performances in the first two haven't been great, but we've got the 6 points out of the first two, and that is what's most important. But sometimes it can mask over some concerns and you can focus too much on the positive. Today, the performances, in my opinion, caught up to us. We've made a change this season in our approach. I think everyone knows the change we've made or are trying to make. And it's been at the detriment of our fluidity and our transition. All forms of our transition have been affected. Zinni and Xhaka are not there with Martinelli. Ben White's not overlapping Saka. And centrally, now Partey's inverting from right back. We've got a different setup there with Rice and Havertz. So all forms of transition have changed from last year. And I think you can see that. And it's all good and well in the first two games when I mentioned these concerns. And I've only mentioned them because we were getting the points. People want to ram down my neck talking about we're more controlled. We use the ball a lot better. We're more efficient. But really, I don't see that. I mean, I don't see the control that some people have been seeing in the first two, now 3 games.
Okay, so you mentioned there that your reservations about the formations and some of the changes that the manager's made. But let's be honest, man. I mean, I made the point at the watch along, and I'm sure you pretty much agreed that regardless of the selection today, we should really be beating Fulham at home. Mm-hmm. So the game kicks off, and within a minute, we're a goal down. What do you put that down to? I mean, it's happened a few times last season, it's happened again today. What do you put that down to?
On your first point about the lineup being enough and seeing the players there and saying that should be enough, I've been like that. I've said that in the past, but I think now I've got my head around modern day football more and more. I think sometimes overcoaching plays a part. I don't look at Martinelli and see the same Martinelli as I did last season. He's not as hungry to get into the box outside and be the nuisance he was last season. I look at Saka as well, and I don't think Saka is as penetrative into the box as he was last season. And these are by design. We know these two players want to get in and around goal scoring positions. We saw that last year. In the first 3 games this season, I haven't seen that, and that is by design. So as much as, the lineup should be getting the job done, in modern day football now, every player is a cog to a bigger machine. And in my opinion, that's what is causing the confusion. What was the second question?
Well, I was going to say, we said, regardless of team selection, that whoever the manager plays today, we should get a win against Fulham. But we end up conceding a goal, not even a minute on the clock. And I'm saying, what do you put that down to? Was it lack of concentration, complacency, overconfidence? What do you think it is?
I think it's easy to say it's concentration, and you'd be right to say that. Everyone would be right to say that. But my thing is, it's concentration today. It was concentration against Southampton at the end of last season. It was concentration against Bournemouth in March of last year. So if these moments keep on coming up where concentration seems to be a problem, then the problem is bigger than just concentration. Man are not learning from the lessons that they should be learning from. It's all good when we're saying young side. Yes, it is a young side, but the young side need to learn. And I think today was an example of not learning. Surely, if we have more control, like the narrative has been this season so far, you don't concede in the first 90 seconds. Surely not. If this setup is designed to keep more control, you do not concede in the first 2 minutes. And I'm not getting onto Arteta here. I know Arteta's probably as upset, furious, frustrated as I am, as we are, as all of us Arsenal fans are. I'm not putting heat on him. What I'm saying is, when your performances are not great, but you're getting results, you can skim past them. But when your performances are not great and it's costing you points, as it did today, albeit very early on in the season, there is a cause for concern for sure, because we should be wiping the floor with Fulham. We should have wiped the floor with Forest. And to be honest with you, against Palace, we should have wiped the floor with them. If we're talking about winning league titles and competing with City and learning off last season and getting more points than 85, conceding less goals than 40 plus, we can't be conceding 3 in the first 2 at the Emirates against Forest and Fulham.
I've got to ask you, his name was brought up a few times on the watch along, and I dare say there's going to be a lot of talk about him after the game. He came into the club, £65 million signing, a lot of questions were made, a lot of eyebrows raised. Kai Havertz wasn't his best day today. How do you see that signing playing out so far?
Not great. Not great. again, similar to how in the first two, if I raise concerns about performances, I'm told we control a lot more, and metrics you can't really see are used to cover up deficiencies. I think with Havertz it's the same. I hear a lot of off the ball, he creates spaces for other players. Off the ball, his work rate is immense, but I'm yet to see what people are seeing both off and on the ball. And it's still very early days in his Arsenal career, but it's not early days in his Premier League career. I am concerned. I was probably the one that wanted an upgrade in the 8 most over the last 5 years. You know how frustrated I was with Xhaka coming up until last season, where, in my opinion, Xhaka completely turned it around and he became a key piece to what we were doing. Right now, I miss Xhaka. That's mad, L'Oreal.
That's big for you to say.
That's mad. Because I wanted an upgrade on Xhaka. Do I think we've got it? Not the Xhaka of last season. We don't have an upgrade so far at this moment in time. But again, I'll lean back to it's only 3 games, and I can only hope that the 65 million we spent on Havertz turns into a great piece of business. I'm not going to lose myself yet. But one thing is, I've seen Man City lose 1 league title in the last 6-7 years, I think it is. And the way they lost that is Liverpool hit the ground running and they didn't look back. I haven't seen Manchester City caught in a title race. I haven't seen teams go toe-to-toe with City and win a league title. I've seen one team run away with it and not look back again. So for me, going into this season with hopes of winning the Premier League, I was looking at 4 wins out of 4 in the first 4. Whether the performances were great or not, I don't care too much. I want the points on the board, 12 points, international break, and we move. We fumbled against Fulham. We beat. If we go, next week and welcome United with the pasting that we should give them, in terms of our trajectories over the last 18 to 24 months, then this will be forgotten. But we can't afford too many of these. We saw how difficult it was against City last season when we were pretty much flawless for 20, 25 games, and then we started dropping points and lost it. I think I'm concerned, but it's still early days.
You mentioned Man United, and in closing, I was going to ask you about that. So we've got Man United next week, by far our biggest game of the season so far. Disappointing today. Some would say we were underwhelming against Forest, although we did do well to beat Palace away from home, especially down to 10 men. But next week, I would imagine, will be a sterner test than all of those games. I'm going to ask you straight out, would you make any changes to the starting lineup for next week?
I would.
Are you able to say who?
Well, we just talked about one man that I think needs to be taken out the firing line, both for his benefit and the fans.
So hang on a minute, you're advocating dropping Havertz already then?
I wasn't an advocate for him to be the 8 in our team in the first place. I just trust Arteta a lot more than I did a couple of years ago, and I think he deserves that trust. But if I see something I'm not happy with, I'm not going to not say it because I trust Arteta. I'm going to say it because in the first 3 games, when you're playing Forest, Fulham and Palace, you're looking at 9 points. You're looking at maybe 9 goals scored. You're looking at potentially 1, 2 conceded max. Instead, we've scored, 5? Conceded, 3? Not good enough. So I think going into United, we need to make a little change. I think Vieira came on today. And in my opinion, if we didn't concede that second goal, he would have been man of the match. Why? Because he wins us the penalty, he gets the assist for the second goal, and he was on it, And that's what I don't see from Havertz. That's why it would be him that loses his place for me. Because as much as I'm not asking you to give me the world and score bangers from 30 yards and get 2-3 goal contributions a week, I want you to be on it. And from Vieira today, I saw he was on it. And am I saying he goes straight in? No. I think, Zinchenko should start left back. I think you go back to the Gabriel Saliba white back 4. If you want it to be Kiwior, I don't know what's going on with Gabriel, then cool. It can be Kiwior. It doesn't really change much for me. And then you go for Partey, Rice and Odegaard in the 3. And you go Jesus up top with Martinelli, Saka either side. A bit more of what we were used to from last season now that they're back in training. So I would make a change. There'll be one player coming out to make that change, and that would be Havertz. And just go. Like I said, we should be beating Man United comfortably the weekend. I'm not saying we will. Before Scarfagri wants to clip me and the Man United fans want to jump there, I'm not saying we will, because there are concerns from the first 3 games, but we should. We most definitely should. And I'm interested to hear what Arteta's got to say after this game and the reports coming out of it, because I'm sure Arteta is as deflated and angry as I am.